Welcome to the Better Stack podcast, where we have conversations about AI, software dev, and all kinds of new technology. And today it will be Web3 and crypto, as you'll find out. I'm one of your hosts, Richard, and I'm joined by
James,
Andres, hi.
Sarah.
Cool. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah. It's good to have you. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, totally. Thank you guys for having me on. I am a software engineer for the past 8 years now, almost. I am a former coding bootcamp grad, actually, and then part of a core team built and sold a blockchain analytics startup a few years ago, and now a software engineer at Amberdata, where we build solutions for enterprise-grade digital assets trading analytics.
Nice. And you have a plaque behind you. Is that a silver plaque? What's that for?
Yes, I do. In my background, I have the YouTube plaque up in my office. On the side, I kind of like to create educational content for developers, and I've enjoyed over the years kind of helping new developers break into the space.
Nice. That's very cool. I think we're working towards that as well.
We are, yeah. We
Almost
hope to
there.
have one day. Subscribe if you're listening.
Yes, like and subscribe.
Can I start by just asking, what are enterprise-grade digital assets? Are those like the Bitcoins of the world?
So enterprise grade, it means more like the solutions that we're building for it, as opposed to specific tokens being enterprise grade. We build systems that allow institutional investors to be able to have real-time analytics, and we do aggregations and insights on top of the actual data that are valuable to large funds and banks and traders and stuff like that. So we also provide data to them through various different channels that are big data databases like Snowflake and things like that are useful to larger teams and institutions to consume the data through. So it's more the solutions that are enterprise grade as opposed to specific tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds really complicated. As someone who is very new to, well, not new, I've heard of Web3 and crypto before, and most people have heard of Bitcoin, but just the fact that people are investing in it. If I try to kind of break apart what you said and dumb it down a tiny bit. So if an investor, say I'm an investor and I want to invest in or use your company, it's Amberdata, if I'm correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to use Amberdata. What typically would I be using it for?
You would be using it to analyze the market, analyze crypto market trends, basically. So people can make investment decisions and, based off of, they might come, we have they can ingest data through our API, through some of these other channels. We have a couple different UI platforms as well with charts and stuff like that are fed with our data. So basically, yeah, you are able to kind of get an overview of the entire essentially on-chain market through the data we provide, and then make investment decisions, trading decisions based upon the trends and analysis that you can do.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
You said that you teach people how to get in that space. What would be the ABCs of crypto teaching to young developers?
Great question. So in terms of blockchain development, there's really 3 different kind of layers, I would say, that you can choose between. So there's kind of the blockchain level developer, which is really almost you're more of a mathematician or a cryptographer at that point, the people Ethereum core developers sort of thing, where you're actually creating the chain ecosystem. That's a little bit less attainable to beginners, I would say, in general. The next layer would be a smart contract developer. So that's where you would want to learn Solidity, maybe Rust, and you actually write smart contracts. Applications are deployed and run on those blockchains. And then the final layer is almost more of what would be maybe the front-end developer in this situation, where you build DApps, decentralized applications, which is just regular web apps that interact with those smart contracts. So it's the smart contract on the blockchain is your back end, basically, almost like your API layer. And then you can build DApps that interact with that. So depending on which layer of development you're interested in going into, there's different skill sets that are going to serve you the most. I would say for people who want to become smart contract developers, which I think is a really, really great thing to learn. Definitely Solidity and Rust is going to be your best friend. Learning to work with tools like Forge. I don't know if people really use Hardhat as much anymore, but some of those like IDEs and out-of-the-box packages to help you build smart contracts, and also smart contract security. Learning about how to catch vulnerabilities and write secure smart contracts is really, really important, especially with AI, where like people are just, have ChatGPT write this smart contract and deploy it. Like there's definitely like a lot of room for little gotchas and mistakes in Solidity. So learning about security is also a great place to start there. As far as just building dApps, learning like React and TypeScript like you would for regular front-end development is going to basically still serve you really well. And then learning how to work with NPM packages like Web3.js or Ethers.js, stuff like that that helps you to be able to have the application interact with smart contracts so people can connect their wallet and then interact with your smart contract however you want to, whether it's minting an NFT or whatever it is.
I feel like the dumb person in the corner. You said a lot of things that I know some of, but not all of. So I'm just going to try and take you back a step. Can you explain what a smart contract is?
So a smart contract is really just a block of code, like a code program that runs on a blockchain. So for a really simple smart contract, you could have like, let's say you just deployed a contract with a function that allows you to just a mint function. And every time that function is called, it mints an NFT to the wallet address that called it. So you could then deploy that to the blockchain. And then in your dApp, anytime someone connects their wallet and, you can have a mint button that calls that function on the smart contract. Every time someone clicks it, it's going to mint an NFT for that person. So that's like a very, very like basic example. But smart contracts, they can be very complex, especially if it's a contract for like some kind of treasury or like a liquidity pool or something like that. There could be lots of advanced mechanisms in terms of token burn and yield and all these little DeFi kind of mechanisms that people have. So yeah, it's really just at the end of the day, it's really just code that runs on the blockchain.
How widely used are smart contracts nowadays? Can you give an example of like a very sophisticated smart contract?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of them. Really, in DeFi is where you're going to find like the most sophisticated or most complicated, maybe is the word, smart contracts. Like you'll have contracts that might, do a lot of calculations before they perform an action, like TWAP and VWAP and like those different like finance things that it's going to be built into the smart contract in order to determine like the price of this asset at the exact time that this, function is going to execute, stuff like that. And that gets into like you might have an oracle, which like is basically a connector that allows a smart contract to be able to read data from off chain, because smart contracts inherently are like limited to their little box. So you could have like an oracle with a price feed, so it can read off chain assets and include that in the calculation. So like it can definitely get pretty complicated, but it's in the financial side of things is where you'll find like the most advanced, I guess, stuff. And also the financial side of crypto is what I personally find like the most interesting and exciting, and fintech is where I have spent my whole career thus far. So I guess I'm also partial to that space as well.
I was going to ask, is there actually a way to separate crypto and blockchain from the financial side of things? Because it seems like every time I think about crypto, there's some finance involved, some token, some coin. Like, is the underlying, I think blockchain, the underlying tech you can use without having to release a coin and everything, right?
Yeah, for sure. And there's definitely interesting use cases for blockchain just as a storage mechanism. Like even in industries like healthcare and stuff like that, there's a lot of solutions being worked on related to like being able to privately store data in an immutable ledger, and just like the use of that's still useful like outside of finance. Crypto specifically typically lends itself more towards the finance side of things. But then there is, you can be just in Web3 and not really be in like DeFi at all. Lots of projects that are working on like Web3 applications. Like I know someone that works for like scan your clothes. Like it comes with a physical tag and you like scan it and it like lives on chain and you can like just, metaverse things or whatever. To me, like those use cases are difficult to see like mass adoption for like a lot of that stuff. But for sure, just like blockchain technology by itself is useful to like a lot of different things outside of finances.
Yeah, I think that's been sort of my overall opinion as someone who's never really touched crypto again, besides seeing like Bitcoin and all of the meme coins, is I haven't seen much adoption that I know of in like mainstream products. I guess obviously businesses can be using it business to business and things like that. But like the blockchain and stuff, I haven't really seen a big sort of Web3 example that shows me that Web3 is the future that they called it, I guess. I don't know if that might just be me being naive and not seeing these companies or if there are some out there.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think there's a few use cases in like gaming specifically that have some potential, but in general, I don't really see that as being something that consumers super care about. I think that finance is moving on chain in a massive way, and we're seeing huge institutional adoption. I think in the coming years, we will see finance move almost entirely into on-chain solutions, which is a big statement, but working in the industry, I 100% think that that's where we're going. Yeah, I would agree, like a lot of these little like Web3, projects and whatever is not necessarily something that I see as like this huge, like, this is the future kind of thing. I think the crypto side is where a lot of the value in terms of mainstream adoption comes in. And then to your point, just like other use cases for blockchain as a data storage mechanism.
I have to address the elephant in the room. If you're saying that everything is moving to the chain, right? Doesn't that open possibility for like mass corruption and black market activity because you can't verify who sent the money to whom?
Well, you can on private chains, and that's what a lot of these institutions are doing. Like the Canton network is like the current new trendy one that everyone's moving on to. Anyone can create a blockchain. Like you don't have to use, Bitcoin and Ethereum or whatever's out there. And so these companies can create private chains to facilitate their transactions and stuff as well. And that can be as closed. It doesn't have to be this open, transparent, everyone can see everything that goes on chain. You can have, all of the transactions and all of the data can be private to your internal chain if you want to create one yourself or use a private one.
So in the future, we would have like chains that are backed up by trusted institutions like a bank or something, and they would move money through that.
Yeah, and so what I think is maybe like my biggest prediction in this direction is RWAs. I think tokenized RWAs, which stands for real world assets. And so that's like when you take, let's say you took an asset like gold or something that's like more of a TradFi asset, and you create a token representation of that on chain that's then tradable and it's pegged to the actual price of gold in the market, let's say. I think that is becoming huge because you can trade 24/7, 365 internationally with no friction. And so that's like a massive win for banks and funds. Their money can be put to work all the time. And then to be even more specific in that lane, maybe this is too finance heavy, but I think tokenized collateral specifically within that space is like what is especially interesting to banks about this, because they can do larger deals much faster and without interruption, and their collateral can be put to use. It's not that money's not tied up while the deal is going through. They could essentially, if that money's on chain, they can earn yield while the deal is going through on that money. So it's just like, if you think about like massive opportunities for like capital to be put to use, like this is, it's a no-brainer. It's not that everybody's going to be paying for everything in Bitcoin or something, right? Which is, I think, sometimes when people hear that, they think like crypto, I think, oh, like there's no way everybody's going to just like buy Bitcoin. And it's like, no, definitely not. But like the way that the underlying technology under how our financial system works is moving on chain very rapidly. And a lot of people won't necessarily see that change in like their day to day, but it is happening like underneath, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I didn't think about crypto in that sense until you mentioned it. But do you know of any kind of high street banks or non-popular banks that have done that already that you know of?
Yes, I know of a lot. I don't know if I'm like supposed to name like
Fine,
like our
okay.
clients from work and stuff. I don't know what like my rules are for that, but let's
Say
just
what
say
you
like
can say. We don't want you to violate NDAs.
like basically the biggest names in banking that you could think of would be on the list.
Wow.
I think, yeah, they all have enough money, don't they, to even experiment with it and see it as a new avenue. So it would make sense that most of them I could think of probably have some sort of hands in crypto and that lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
for sure.
fascinating to hear I think someone in crypto and Web3 say that there is like a separation between them, because I think I've always linked them together, and hearing you say that sort of you don't actually think that the Web3 use case is as good as the crypto side is quite, eye-opening to me as someone that just linked Web3 and crypto in the same sort of bucket and said no one's going to use that.
That's my opinion. Maybe someone else would answer in the space would answer it differently, but yeah, it's just my own thought, I guess.
So Sarah, how did you start in software development, and what propelled you to go in the direction of blockchain and all this?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think for a lot of people, they started out in tech and then found crypto and was like, this is interesting, and went in that direction. For me, I actually found crypto first. I had zero experience in tech whatsoever, no prior experience with coding at all or anything. And back in 2017, so it was like pretty early days still, I fell down a Twitter rabbit hole of crypto stuff. And I just became kind of obsessed with it. And I was like, this is so cool. I want to be able to do more with this. I wonder if I could learn to code and do something with this. And I really had no reason to think that I would be good at coding or that was a good idea. So I don't really know what possessed me to pursue that, but I was just like, this stuff is super interesting to me. And so I ended up going to a coding boot camp. And when I graduated after 6 months, I was very fortunate to get an internship at a crypto startup here in Chicago. And kind of the rest is history, and have been working in the industry ever since. So yeah, it's a little bit of a different route kind of coming into it, but I knew from the beginning that it was a space I wanted to be in.
This is a bit of a random question. Is there like a San Fran of crypto? Or is it in San Francisco as well? Like, is there a Silicon Valley of crypto, or is like Chicago got a lot of crypto companies essentially? Like, where is the best place, would you say?
That's a good question. So really, it's Miami, actually, is kind of like the crypto Silicon Valley. But that's been true for the past few years. I think more and more we're seeing companies moving to New York, which I think also kind of makes sense with like the finance direction being like such a big part of like we're growing so much into where crypto's going. There's crypto companies like literally opening up offices on Wall Street now. So that's becoming more and more of a thing. There's always, I mean, of course, like in San Francisco, you're always going to find, tech startups. And even here in Chicago, actually, there's a pretty good number of crypto companies as well, which is cool.
Nice. So going back to what you said earlier about you found crypto first and then that got you into tech. Are you okay to explain exactly what about crypto got you excited?
Yeah, I think back then, so I was young and working at a sandwich shop and, just like didn't really have a lot of money or anything like that. And I think what appealed to me about it was this idea that I was a little bit idealistic, I think, at the time too. Just like I was like 22 years old, 21, 22. And I was like, the idea of kind of this democratization of opportunity in the financial space just really appealed to me because I was definitely like a go-getter and a hard worker, and I just wanted, someone to give me an opportunity and give me a chance to really show what I could do, and I felt like I could really run with that. And seeing a space that was so focused on, just giving everybody a shot, I think that just really excited me, and I was like, I would love to be part of building something that kind of is opening up doors and opportunities for everyone, not just someone that had the opportunity to go and get a finance degree and, go into this whole career path and, kind of opening up some of those opportunities just for people from all different backgrounds. And so that was at least, kind of the thesis I had when I first started. And then I think you spend a lot of years in a space and you really see like all the good and bad that can come out of it. But that still remains one of my favorite things about it for sure is just, although there's all of this, there's the criticism of like, well, this enables, terrorists to send money back and forth really easily and whatever. There's all those negatives. But then there is also, all of these countries whose economy is now able to participate way more in like the global financial space because of on-chain finance and all of this stuff. So I think it's cool to see a lot of those ideas and goals be realized in the space over the years, even kind of taking the good with the bad.
So you mentioned there are the 3 pillars, if I remember correctly, like the blockchain, then smart contracts, and then the front end. Which of those areas are your favorite to work on and develop something?
I think for me, it would be the smart contract layer is probably my favorite. I can't speak to really the blockchain core layer. I haven't really done a lot of work there. And now, like with AI tools, it's like so much extremely easy to like kind of build that DApp front end layer. And so I think being in the smart contract layer right now is an interesting place to be because obviously AI is a good resource and helpful in building it, but you also still need to have a lot of knowledge of what you're doing in order to not make some basic mistakes. And so, yeah, I think it's also come a long way. Like when I first started doing smart contract development, it was like painful. The early versions of Solidity, it was just like you couldn't do like normal arrays of numbers. And like there was just all these things that were just like really frustrating to work with in terms of like writing the code. But now it's definitely come a long way to where just the developer experience is a lot more pleasant too. So that also makes it more enjoyable to work with.
So my understanding of that smart layer contract was that you write in Rust. Is that correct?
Yep, that's another language that can be used for writing smart contracts. Rust and Solidity are the common ones. There's some others that are like more niche and stuff for specific chains, but in general, yeah, if you want to write smart contracts, those would be the languages to learn.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, because you mentioned arrays, and I thought, hang on a minute, Rust can do arrays. Yeah, I guess maybe Solidity is probably stronger for contracts than Rust in some cases.
But yeah, and Solidity can do more of that stuff now, but
Isn't Solidity like just for crypto? Like you can't use it for anything else? Or can you use it as just a standalone programming language?
yeah, it's really specifically for smart contracts. I mean, because it's designed to run in the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine. And so it's, yeah, you really wouldn't, there's really not a lot of other use cases where like you could use Solidity outside of developing for smart contracts.
That's wild. I think the more I talk to you, the more I kind of know what I don't know, if that makes sense. Like EVM, you mentioned, Ethereum virtual machine. I didn't know Ethereum had a virtual machine. So if we were to kind of go down to basics again, so say you're making a smart contract, you're in front of your computer, you're going to make one from scratch. What tools do you need? And if you were to make a basic one, like a Hello World smart contract, how would you do it?
So what I would recommend for like a first smart contract or like a beginner just starting out, and even like tool that I still use all the time is something called ThirdWeb. They have a really nice platform for really just Web3 development in general. But they have a lot of different smart contract templates on there, which you can use as a starting point. Many of them you can just deploy and use as is, depending on what you're doing. But they're all like audited, so you know they're going to be secure. And if you're like just learning how to write smart contracts, like that's a great place to kind of get an idea of what different contracts, different types of contracts can look like. And they make it really easy to, if you can just edit the contract and then like one click deploy, and like right within their platform, you can deploy it to a test net, and then you can deploy it to production mainnet if you want to. And that's still the place that I start for most smart contracts that I write, which to be honest, I don't write a lot of them these days because my job is more about like data pipeline work as opposed to like deploying apps to the blockchain at this time. But like, yeah, if I'm going to write a smart contract, I still go out there and like grab a contract from Third Web and start there to work off of. So that would definitely be like, Third Web would be my recommendation for getting started for sure.
Have you ever tried spinning up your own meme coin?
Well, I guess I have like launched a token just like for fun, but I've never like in a serious way been like buy my coin.
Do you see meme coins as like they're just a thing that happened, or do you think they've had they give a bad rep to the crypto finance space? Like, are you there for them, or do you not like them, basically?
I like them because like why not? I feel like just, like sometimes it's like, why take life so seriously? Like, I mean, the meme coin space, like, actually, like, it's interesting to me, like, working at Amberdata, how many of these major traditional funds, like, are interested in meme coin data. Like, a lot of these banks will actually, they'll be like, oh, Citibank requested PooCoin data. And you're like, for real? Like, this is really a thing that I'm doing for my job today? But it's like, I mean, it's actually a thing. Like, I mean, where there's volatility, like it can be traded and there's money to be made. So, I mean, I think that also goes back to like democratizing opportunity, because really like anybody can, create a meme coin and have this, opportunity to trade with it and whatever, which I think is just like kind of fun. I mean, at a certain level, a lot of it's just like glorified gambling, I guess, but like it is like, I think it's pretty fascinating like watching how those markets move sometimes.
I went in a rabbit hole once of seeing like people launching coins on pump.fun, and I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's like a live streaming platform. You can live stream releasing your token, and sometimes people do like crazy stuff on their stream to try and get the token to go up and up and up in price. And then there was a really funny clip of an 11-year-old just rug pulling his coin at like £32,000 or dollars, and then he just withdrew it all and said, like, he put his middle finger up to everyone and was like, screw you, I just got a load of money, and just left. It was just some 11-year-old kid, and it was very funny. It was, yeah, it's a
That's
fascinating
hilarious.
place.
I think also something that's really interesting is Polymarket. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but like the prediction markets are like becoming so popular as well. And it's like kind of almost in that similar vein of meme coins, where it's like you're kind of just like betting on, the outcome of some event, but it's becoming like such a huge market. And I think it's also kind of just cool how that's something that is possible because of crypto, because, like banks can't really, there's way too much like regulatory red tape for like banks to be able to be like, here's a stock of sorts, like based on, like this type of prediction. But I don't know what the status of it is, but I know here in the US there's currently some bill that's in progress to treat Polymarket contracts as actual futures contracts rather than as betting. And so it's like actually becoming like a legally recognized like futures trading category essentially, which is like just kind of interesting how like, putting stuff on chain has made stuff like that possible. It's like just kind of wild to watch.
Yeah, no, my fascination with Polymarket is that it's become like an incredible predictor. Like, it's better than polls at predicting elections because people actually have to put real money behind it. So it's like, and also you don't have to necessarily tell people and things. Like, if someone asks you who you're voting for, you might lie to them. Whereas if you want to put money on it, you're actually just going to put money on what you do truly believe. So like, it's been way better at predicting who's going to win elections and pretty much anything than traditional polls and other things like that. So that's the side that I found fascinating about it.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
There were bets recently on when Gemini 3 would release, and I think a few people did make money because it was like if it would come out before November, and some people put like large amounts of money on it, so they've won that one.
Did you put any in?
No, I don't touch Polymarket. That's not for me. I just watch it from the sidelines.
Definitely seen some people make like some crazy money on the randomest stuff, because we do have like some data come through from the prediction markets, and I remember when like the new pope got selected, like there were some people that really cashed in on that one, like really had the right pick. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
One of them is, will Jesus return? You can bet on whether Jesus will return, and it's really weird because it's like technically you can earn like interest on it, and like it could be a good investment.
So what are the results?
I think it's basically like, yeah, I don't know again how it works necessarily, but I think it's like 96% of people are saying like obviously no, and then like 4% yes. But then if he does return, there's profit to be made, you know. But I'd love to know how
Sure.
you verify if Jesus returned.
Yeah.
How are Polymarket verifying that?
I feel like Sarah, you're the best person to ask this question. Why is Bitcoin tumbling right now? What is going on?
Yeah, the market in general is like just it's interesting because like yesterday, in terms of like major news headlines and stuff, like there was nothing super crazy, and then Nvidia posted a really solid monster earnings call. And then for some reason within like the next 80 minutes, just like everything completely took a nosedive, which is just like we're like, wow, the market's just like bleeding out today. Yeah, who knows, really.
But Bitcoin has been on a downward spiral for like a week or two now. So that's what I'm curious about. Is there any news behind that, or is it just very random at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems kind of random. I think it's just like following a little bit like the hesitation in the general market. But yeah, it was like definitely kind of stabilized above 100K there for a while, and then now it's down like 80 something, I think. So yeah, it's been taking a hard tumble the last week or so.
But as you said, sort of the whole market has, because there is a belief sort of linking it back to our sort of dev space that there is an AI bubble, but no one knows when it's going to pop. So everyone's being a little bit careful. And like everyone thought basically, I think there was a quote I saw today, which is the CEO of NVIDIA said to his employees, if we don't post a good earnings, like the world economy is going to crash, which is insane pressure to put on your employees. But like it generally people believe that. They were like, if Nvidia had a bad earnings call and didn't like hit expectations, it would prove that AI wasn't as big as like everyone was believing and that it would crash. And then even when they did post good earnings, I think a lot of people are still skeptical and wanted to take the profits the second it came out. So yeah. And as we said, I think Bitcoin does roughly follow the market, which is pretty similar, but it tends to swing a little bit more just due to the nature of crypto.
Yeah, there is all this like buzz about like when is this AI bubble popping or not popping, and yeah, it's been interesting to follow the crypto and Web3 space as the AI wave has kind of come through, because I think, you know, a lot of people think Web3 and they think NFTs and tokens and all that, but I think the reality is the future of Web3 is AI agents, data pipelines, privacy protocols, governance, interoperability, like all this stuff working together. I think it's really interesting to see how AI is kind of it's kind of connecting some of these pieces together, right? With like the ability to have 24/7, you know, trading activity. And now also when you add AI agents into that mix, you know, it kind of makes that a little bit more realistic in some ways. And this idea of like automated on-chain trading that's just continually taking place. It's definitely been interesting to see it evolve that way.
So are you saying AI is bringing the end of human traders?
Well, who knows? Maybe it'll bring the end of my job too at this point if what they're saying is
Not quite.
true.
Not quite.
Not quite yet.
I was gonna ask about this. Like, is it a good thing to mix those two things, AI and crypto? Because like AI can sometimes, you know, mess things up pretty badly, and if it messes up with your, I don't know, financial data, it's kind of a big security risk.
Yeah, I think there's things that AI does well and things it doesn't do so well, right? So, like, I'm sure over time, you know, a lot of its weaknesses will continue to improve. But I mean, a big way that it's really useful, like, to us specifically right now at Amberdata, just in terms of how our data is served, is like, you know, a lot of these traders will have their own LLMs that they've trained around their own strategies and stuff, and they want to be able to have our data, have their LLM interact with our data, you know, sort of plug in all of this historical on-chain data with the LLM that's trained on their strategies and be able to communicate in natural language about trades and analysis that they want to do. And so in things like that, it definitely works really well. And a lot of our work is around creating MCP servers so that they can make that connection, and tagging and semantic modeling for all of our data so that it's more crawlable by LLMs and, you know, stuff like that, I think is where like a lot of the work is starting to shift to, versus just serving data through an API, which is like the primary way that people had consumed it in the past. And you can just kind of see that slowly starting to shift. So in those ways, LLMs specifically are like really useful to traders, or so it would seem. But yeah, then there's ways in which it kind of sucks at certain things, and you ask it to, hey, help me with this code problem, and you're like, what is this solution? Like, this is crazy.
And that company, Amberdata, so as I understand it, it sells crypto market data to customers. That's their primary service.
Yeah, essentially, in a nutshell.
Cool. I have a question that isn't about crypto, and I don't know if anyone has any crypto-specific questions they want to ask before. Huh?
I think I'm all good.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so many things to learn now.
Yeah, so many websites to go and do and learn about crypto, and all the acronyms that you gave, I have to remember what they were. Anyway, you have a YouTube channel, which is doing quite well, if you have a silver plaque behind you. What inspired you to start that, and what do you mainly talk about?
Yeah, so I think for me, it was because I got into crypto from learning about blockchain on social media, and like on Twitter, on YouTube and stuff. I just kind of wanted to be part of educating people about that and, giving that same chance for other people to like learn about what interested me. And there weren't, at the time that I started, like there weren't a lot of people really talking about their experience as a new developer getting into Web3. And I feel like that's much more like common. Lots of people do that now, and like build in public has kind of become a thing. But like 7 years ago, like that wasn't nearly like as common as it is now. And there was probably like a small handful of blockchain developer YouTube channels that really posted anything at all about like how to actually build stuff with blockchain. Like certainly there were like crypto trading channels, but like in terms of the development side, there was a lot less stuff out there. So I think I just wanted to share my experience with that and like, connect with other people who were interested in it, because I just was obsessed with it and loved to talk about it. And I was like, anybody that wanted to chat about blockchain development, I was just so down. So I think, yeah, I just kind of wanted to share my experience and just kept with it somewhat consistently. I've definitely gone through some phases where I like don't post as much, and then I think as the industry has gone through a few different big shifts, then sometimes I don't post for a little while because I'm like, let's see where this goes, and then like make some videos about it. So I kind of step away and come back to it here and there. But yeah, over the years, just have continued posting, and it's been a really great decision to do that, I think, because it's allowed me to make so many connections with projects in the crypto and Web3 space. Like I got to spend a year doing DevRel work for Gelato Network, which is a big smart contract automation cloud infrastructure company. And I got to travel around the world going to crypto conferences and interviewing founders and, making content for different companies. And so it's allowed me to be able to do so many cool things in the space and like meet so many cool people, which is definitely the best part about it.
And the content that you make, I would say it's not typical dev education content. This, not in a bad way. I think this is a good way in the sense that you're not pumping out loads of videos, like you said, about a specific topic. It's more like today you're going to focus on something really unique, like building, I don't know, a smart contract from scratch. And I think the way you film is quite unique as well. So can you explain what made you want to kind of move away from what people are usually doing and come up with your own way of filming and making content?
Yeah, I think so. My filming style kind of depends on the video. Like if I'm going to a conference or something, I might do more of a vlog style video. Like when I went to go speak at ETH Denver, I just like, kind of filmed being at the event and like, giving a talk and what that was like. And then when I'll like mix that in with making videos that are like more of a tutorial where we do like a full build of a project. For those videos where I like talk about a topic, I try to really focus on making the video as clear as possible, because I would get tired of trying to follow tutorial videos where I just felt like something wasn't fully explained, or like they kind of jumped from one part to another, and I was like, wait, how did we like get here? And with a topic as deep as blockchain stuff, I really want to make it as digestible as I can for anybody to just come upon the video and get something out of it. So I usually spend a lot of time in kind of the scripting phase of making the video in order to try to make sure that I've really developed each point and like have good examples and tried to make it as clear as I can. And so that's usually like what I really focus on with like builds. And then as far as what the video is, it depends on kind of where things are at in the industry. So like the most recent videos that I've just uploaded like the other day, I did a partnership with Tiger Data, which is the team behind Timescale DB, and they've serviced the crypto space for a long time, and they make a fantastic product for time series database. And so I did a full build tutorial where we used their new cloud infrastructure to have a real-time crypto price tracker that's ingesting data, performing AI analysis on it, and serving it to a front end. And like something like that is super relevant, in my opinion, to like a lot of work, development work today, where a lot of it has to do with data ingestion and, you know, certain AI analysis and that sort of thing. So because I feel like that's what's important for developers to know today, like doing a build like that is like something that I think makes a lot of sense. Back in the day, I used to do a lot of videos about like how to set up a DAO, like how to create a smart contract for a decentralized autonomous organization, because that was like people just loved those back like in like 2020. Today, like no one cares about that, and it's like not really a thing anymore. So I just kind of like try to go pick what is like important to know, I think, for developers in the space today, and like make it as clear and in depth as I can.
I remember when crypto was booming, like I would check out this project, this, I don't know, new token, new DAO or whatever. And then it was so hard to understand, is this a scam or is this legit? So can you give like what specific things to look out for what is a scam and what is a legit project with something, you know, relevant behind it?
Yeah. I used to spend a lot of time back in those days like trying to review projects and like figure out which ones were legit, especially like projects that would come to me and like want to work together, and I would be like, you know, having to determine, is this like a reliable thing? I think one of the biggest things that I found is, are they transparent about who the founders are and who's a part of the team and who's like on their cap table? And that's like one of the biggest indicators, because I mean, the Web3 space, sometimes they like to be, you know, like, oh, everyone's anonymous and, you know, whatever. And that can be hard to determine if something's legit, because then people just have no consequences if they're going to rug pull. So like some of those things I would stay away more from. I think if like the project's website has like these are the founders, like this is the team, like we're backed by like all these different, you know, reputable labels, and like if you go on Twitter is like honestly a big, or I guess X, and like look at who's following the project, like I've also found that to be a really good indicator. Like if a lot of my favorite creators in the Web3 space or kind of thought leaders in the space are following a project, it's usually a good sign that the project is like probably legit. So those I found to be like the most reliable indicators, as opposed to just like looking through the code. Because like you can look at a project, if they make their smart contracts public, you can look through it, but it's typically not going to be, if there's a glaringly obvious issue like a backdoor, like we can flush all the tokens, like they're not going to have gotten this far anyway. Like you're not likely to just look at the code and find something and be like, wow, this is a scam most of the time. But if you can see that the project is like, hey, there's real people behind this who are actually know what they're doing and like actually care about this and care about the space, that's what usually makes me feel the most confident about a project.
And how do you feel, this is just a side question, how do you feel about all the news about AI? Because at the moment, I would have said a few years ago, Web3 crypto was quite popular, and then it's kind of gone down, and now I'm hearing more about AI, and there's less talk about Web3 and crypto. I mean, it's there in certain pockets, but I guess in general, it's not there. And so even though there are still things going on which I didn't know about, but since speaking to you, I know it's still popular and still thriving. You kind of hear more about AI, more money is going into AI, more investment is going into AI. And how do you feel about that, being someone who was, I would say, once at the forefront of technology news? Now AI has taken over. Do you worry about like the popularity of AI in the sense that it might make your thing look less cool, if that makes sense?
Uh, I'm kind of glad actually that we got through the hype era with Web3 and crypto. I think there's just so much noise and so much junk back in like 2020 to 2022. I think a lot of that needed to get flushed out, and it's actually kind of nice to have a lot of that stuff. Just I felt like being in the space when like major meltdowns were happening, like FTX and all of that stuff. It definitely was like it wasn't really fun to be like, yeah, I work in crypto, because everyone's perception of it was so overwhelmingly negative. And so I think getting a lot of that just like washed out of the space has actually been really nice, and it's kind of just left with like the quiet builders, which is like what I prefer anyway. So I definitely don't mind AI taking over the headlines and like kind of taking some of the heat now. I feel like now everyone can hate on AI and be mad at
Yeah.
AI and
Yeah.
stop being mad at me.
Do you see that in real life? Are people like less mad at you now that the AI is in the headline?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, like the average person, kind of has just forgotten about like crypto and blockchain stuff. So I definitely like don't really hear about it as much from people outside the space, which is nice. I think like when I did, it was usually just so much misinformation. Like it would usually be like, blockchains use way too much energy, and like that would be what you would hear from like the average person. But never could I like, whenever I would talk to those people, I never came across someone that could actually then explain to me how blockchains work. So it was just a lot of people with opinions that didn't really know a lot about what they were actually talking about. And so I think now, like, a lot of those people have just forgotten that it exists and they've moved on to the next thing. They're upset about AI. And so I don't really have to field as many of those, like, questions or comments anymore. And so I also just got used to kind of just saying that like I work with financial data, and like not even telling people that I worked in blockchain, because I just like didn't want to deal with like all of the opinions from people outside the industry back then. But it's since then too, like blockchain, I think as an industry, like has taken a lot of people's criticism and tried to really innovate around that. And in fact, like Ethereum is now one of the most energy efficient payment systems in the world. And so people's criticism around like blockchains using a lot of energy, like engineers went and innovated and like made it awesome. And like, you don't hear a lot of those same people then be like, kind of giving you your flowers for, the work that was done to improve upon it. They just moved on to the next thing now, which is like, yeah, kind of interesting.
I don't have a question per se, but this is a question James usually asks, and it's more around, do you have any hot takes around, I guess, tech, but crypto, Web3 in general that you want to bring up?
Hot takes? I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything around, like, AI or anything, that would be a hot take. I guess maybe just my overall take maybe is that, like, Web3 and crypto is definitely not dead. I think it's just matured a lot as an industry. And with AI and all of this new stuff, I think what our jobs look like is just changing a lot. These days, like blockchain is kind of now being built as an underlying infrastructure layer of a lot of the stuff that we use day to day. And I think that was always going to be the best use case for it. It's just not something that people see as much.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, it's really cool. I think, yeah, it'll make a nice thumbnail title text to be like, Sarah Benson, Web3 and crypto is not dead.
Love it.
Nice. Any more questions?
Actually, I'm curious about, you said that you're from Iowa, but you moved to Chicago. What made you move to Chicago?
I just wanted to be in a big city, wanted more opportunities, just felt like Iowa life wasn't for me. So I moved here when I was 20 years old.
But why Chicago? Why not New York or Miami or the cities you mentioned before?
Well, that was before I was in crypto, for one thing. But yeah, I mean, Chicago is the nearest major city. It's like I grew up about 6 hours away from where I live now in Chicago. So it was kind of, just growing up there, just like I had been to Chicago a few times throughout my life and thought it was just like this amazing place. So I think in my mind, I was just like, I want to go to the city and like live in Chicago. Yeah, it wasn't really, there wasn't a whole lot of other strategy behind it than that, I guess.
For someone who hasn't been to Chicago, what would you suggest is the best thing about the city?
Best thing about the city, I think, in terms of living here is that, like, Chicago is very much a city of neighborhoods. And so within your neighborhood, you kind of get a lot of the benefits of, like, almost like small town living. Like, I'll run into my neighbors at the pet shop down the street, and you have that, like, very community tight-knit feel. Everyone in Chicago, like, loves Chicago. Like, you will not find a city where, like, people are such, like, people here, like, we wear Chicago merch all the time. The Chicago flag is everywhere. Like, Chicagoans love Chicago. And so living here, you get that kind of small town feel within each neighborhood, which I think is cool to have, like, within a big city. And then in terms of things to do, I always recommend to people to take the river architecture tour downtown. It's like an amazing tour. You just like get to be on a boat and they take you around the Chicago River and tell you about like all the architecture downtown, which Chicago is like a city with like amazing architecture. So if you ever get the chance to visit, that would be my number one must do.
How's the pizza?
Yeah, how's the pizza?
It's good. Like, the interesting thing is, like, everyone comes and wants to try deep dish, which I do like, but it's not like most Chicagoans don't eat a lot of deep dish on the day-to-day, on the regular, but we do have a lot of really good Detroit-style pizza here as well, actually, which is my personal favorite.
Yeah, I think in the UK, that's all I know about Chicago is the deep dish pizza. We get that quite often.
Yeah, it's worth a try, for sure.
Cool. Thanks for your time, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything you want to plug about yourself, your channel, something people should check out, find you somewhere?
Definitely you can find me on YouTube. Sarah Benson Codes is my channel. And then on X Sarah Benson. So definitely, yeah, feel free to follow me. Send me a message. I love to get back to people and just chat about blockchain stuff, development stuff, whatever. So yeah, feel free to stay in touch.
Cool. All right. Thank you for listening to the Better Stack podcast. I've been your host, Richard, and I was joined by
James, goodbye.
Andrews, goodbye.
And Sarah, thanks so much for having me. Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe and like to our channel, and also listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, see you later.